Hey guys, Hammer for the Path, Season 2, Episode 2, Dead Moon. I was definitely really looking forward to this episode, though I didn't really know where we were going because of how different the Season 2 premiere really was. There was a lot of stuff in there that I really didn't know. And going into this episode, I definitely was interested. I will definitely say this was definitely closer to what the path should be, but it's still not a perfect episode. So far, the season is not really hooking me as much as the first one is. I'll talk about that at the end of the once I get to the end and talk about my thoughts and everything. But let's just get into this episode because there was definitely a lot that did happen here. We found it a lot more with the characters, and this episode is only slightly better than the first one for mentioning Season 1 a lot more, so we'll get into that. But we start off with, we see Cal and Sarah are in the woods. They're looking at the mangled body, and Richard is in Sarah's head asking her what she sees, and she says the body is mangled and innocent, and he asks her what she's feeling now. She says cold, frightened, and he asks if she can tell him where that lives in her body. She says it's in her hands, and they're changed so bad, and basically just tells him how she's feeling. And we then realize she's actually in therapy with Richard, who asks if she's available for him to share an opinion now, and she says yes. He says her empathy for the animal is real, but he's sensing some leakage caused by the damage of her breakup, and she says not everything has to do with her split for Eddie. And he, as she was aware of his trip to, and he asked if she was aware of his trip to Peru. So obviously it's something that she was not in the know about, and she claims that he didn't actually go to Peru, which we don't really know if he did. I mean, we know that he's been with the kids and, at the construction job, but is Peru actually happening? Or is that something just inside Eddie's head? We still don't really know. And he says he might be mistaken if it was something he heard. She asked who said that, and he said one of the locals described seeing someone, and he thought it would be him. And she says it wasn't, and if he did, she would know about it. He asks if she's still on speaking terms with him, and she says of course not, since deniers are shunned, and that is their way. And you can tell there's a part of Sarah that does want to talk to Eddie, but she knows that, she can't go against, Meyerism. That's something that she's dedicated her entire life to. She can't go against it now, and I really do like where Sarah's plot is headed, but I will definitely say her plot is still a bit messy. There's a lot of stuff that happens within this episode that some of it makes sense and some of it doesn't. But Eddie is then with Hawk and Summer and says Hawk should eat an ice cream, and Hawk is definitely closer to the Hawk that we knew in Season 1, definitely, and he says he hasn't eaten all day. Hawk says he's fasting since his AL retreat this week, and Eddie says he's moving along. Hawk says it's not a competition, and they all walk together, and they won't tell them that what happens on it, and Eddie says that's how it works. He then buys a necklace for Summer, Summer has her eye on, and then sees a book for the Meyerism Center, and they basically says they should probably get going since he didn't realize how late it was, and they don't want to miss the train. So basically you can tell that he is trying to get closer with his kids, but he just is kind of struggling to since he can't see them a lot, and that is something that again is going to be, I think, a problem throughout this entire season, is what's really going on with Eddie and Sarah. So we then see Abe, and he's talking with Hendren, who I guess is the new director, because the director from last year isn't there, but he tells Hendren, who is the new captain, that the Meyerism are increasing their presence in the city, not just with bodies, but with real estate, and lets him know the building that was purchased by Cal, who has become the focus of his investigation. And Hendren says it's not a federal crime to buy real estate, it's just smart. It's because it's not, there's nothing wrong with buying real estate, it's just a smart way to get at things. And Abe says that they know that he's capable of violent assault, and they suspect that he's capable of murder, but they can't get him on any of that right now. And Hendren says that they'll look at the financial side. Then, since it's easier to track, and Abe says he just filled an application for tax-exempt status with the IRS, and if it goes through, he'll be hard to stop, but if it doesn't, they put him up against the wall and force him into financial propriety. And with his ego, with his arrogance, Hendren says that they can't let it go. He says he'll contact International Revenue, and that says that he has their full support of the U.S. Attorney, including him, and he doesn't understand why the borough kept him in the basement for so long, and he agrees. So, it seems like Abe is doing a pretty good job with this case, which I do like seeing. We didn't see that, he's doing that great last year, and I like that he seems to be doing pretty good here. Only problem is this is the only scene we see him in throughout the whole episode, which is very strange since he's billed as like the fourth main character. Yeah, he's only in one scene throughout this entire episode, and that would be fine if we didn't have a subplot going on that really doesn't make a ton of sense in hindsight, but Eddie then says goodbye to the kids, then asks Sarah if everything is all right, and she says she's fine. He says she doesn't look it, and asks her what's going on. She lets him know she had a session with Richard, and it stirred things up, and he asks what things, and of course, this is the first time they've talked in a long time, and you don't really get that sense that this is the first time they've talked. I mean, they probably have talked in a while, but he's finally getting her to come clean, and she says that they're standing in the middle of the park, treating their kids like it's a drug deal, and she's supposed to be running things like she's a guardian of the light, but instead, this is happening. She asks if this is enough. He tries to comfort her, but she leaves before he can do so, and it's clear there's a lot of things going on with her psychologically that she can't really explain to anyone, but a woman named Lisa Jackson calls Cal and basically tells him that they have denied his application, and he's obviously freaking out about this, and I like the way that did definitely, coincide with what we saw with Abe. I did like that. I just kind of wanted to see one or two more scenes of him, just because it would have made sense since he was the one who orchestrated this, and we see he goes to Sarah, says he needs to see her, and asks how she is. She says she doesn't know, and says she had an unburdening session with Richard, and of course was incomplete. She wanted to tell him everything, and he says that impulse is understandable, but to act on it would be catastrophic, and she says every time she closes her eyes, she relives it, and he tells her about the tax exempt status being denied. She says that he said he was sure it was approved, and he says it was supposed to be. It's religious discrimination is what it is. She says it's what Meyer had said, never to get involved with the government, and he says she may have been right, but in the meantime, for the money situation is critical, and she asks by how much, and he tells her how Carrie Ridge is throwing a fundraiser in the city, a flashy thing, and they need it, and he needs her there, and she says she's not good at these things, especially not now, because, she's going through so many things psychologically, and he says that he knows she's suffering, but they need to put the needs of the movement above their own. They have a responsibility, and he says he's talking to her about it. He says it will turn the lights off and take the compound. That is how critical this really is. So she says she can't, and he pleads with her to do so, and you can see that definitely this isn't going as well as he wants to, but I do like the way that Cal and Sarah are still close as ever, even though they're kind of splitting apart, as we can definitely see. So Eddie is then in his hotel room, and he then goes out to buy himself a new TV, which this scene felt very necessary, but then when we realized what was really going on with the seller talking to him losing his sense of reality, he finally tells him to stop, and basically, he tells him he's just trying to get a TV for his kids, and he's just been away for so long, and we can see the seller actually sympathizes with him because his father was locked up for 30 years, and Eddie says he guesses he is, and you can tell that Eddie, again, he's going through a lot. He can't see his kids, and it's a real burden that's definitely affecting him, and it's something that he doesn't really know what to do about, or, what is his life now that he can't see his kids as much. It's something that he's really contemplating, and I think he did a really good job, with this scene. I definitely did like that. It's a perfect example of a scene that felt kind of pointless, but in the end really wasn't, and we then see Mary. She's at her new home. We get a lot more Mary in this episode, thank God. I was worried we weren't going to get a ton of her, but Nicole gives her some of her old dresses so she can wear to the fundraiser, while Nicole and Russell are planning on not going since they weren't invited in the first place, and Mary then asks her, since she's a mixed race, do her kids look Asian? Nicole says they all have a different mix of them. This one looks just like Russell. And again, I think this is hinting at the fact that Mary's baby is not Sean's. I definitely have this feeling that it's not going to be Sean's baby. It's going to be Cal's. It seems that that's what they're hinting at, especially with a question like that. If her baby's not black, then I definitely think that, or at least some sort of shade of black, I think that her baby probably is Cal's. But again, I don't know. We'll have to see. Sarah then goes to her family in her dress. They're struck by how great she looks, and she asks if it's too much, says she just wants to feel like herself, and Gabby says she always looks great no matter what she's wearing. She then gets a call and says she'll take it outside, and once the coast is clear, she finds Eddie outside, and this is obviously a very close encounter. He informs her parents are outside, asks if she's going somewhere. She says just a work fundraiser in the city, and he asks if she's going with Cal. She asks what he wants, and he says he was worried about her. She seemed off to him, but clearly she was fine, and he asked her if she's more than fine. She says in her session with Richard, and he asked her if she's saying to him about them. She asks if he went to Peru, and he quickly leaves, dodging the question, clearly not wanting to answer it because he feels he's getting interrogated, and basically tells her that Richard's a goddamn liar, and you can tell that things are not great between these two. Obviously, they've been apart for so long, and Eddie just wants to talk to her, and the first thing she wants to talk about is interrogating him about has he actually gone to Peru, which again is something that we don't know about, and I like the way that we are so in the dark about that. By having us be in the dark, it makes us just as confused, and that's something that I think they're doing pretty well, is really making us doubt a lot of this reality. funny. So I definitely did like that. But we then see Russell. He's teaching 1R and talks about the way the light works and how much it factors into their belief system. And he says tonight, on the darkest night of the year, the dead moon, he will need anything they may have brought with them, and basically tells them that they're going to have to find that light inside of them. They're not going to be able to use it. They need to find it in the darkness. And I liked where this was going. I thought this was very interesting overall. It just doesn't really do a ton. They don't really do a ton where there's only about 2 or 3 scenes, and it seemed like this was just here to give Hawk something to do. And while they definitely attempt to do something, I don't really think they know what to do with it because it's not really that big of a part of the episode. So Cal and Sarah are at the fundraiser. Carrie introduced them as the people who saved her son's life. They are angels on earth, and Sarah says their practices are very effective in combating addiction, and Cal explains how clean Mary has become from where she started because, yeah, I mean, we were introduced to Mary a year ago, and if you remember, Mary was very erratic. She had experience with, self-abuse and, a ton of stuff like that, so really she has transformed in many ways, even though she really hasn't. I mean, Mary is still, I think, just as destructive as she was then, but she says they're still heavily involved with social issues in the city and an epidemic of homelessness, but now some of that is connected to mental illness, but an awful lot of it is simply a lack of things the rest of them take for granted. So we then see Eddie. He's with Chloe, and she says that she's happy that he called her eventually. He says he's been pretty busy with the kids. She says that she was starting to think she came on to him too strong. Eddie lets her know it wasn't that. She says she thought that he would be a little weird because she was with his brother and they were just kids, but she wasn't sure if he says, honestly, everything feels a little weird, but it's nice to do something that feels right, and calling her up felt right. So Sarah then explains to the Ridges that the water contamination that is going on, and they were able to bring safe water directly to the residents of Clarksville, but hopefully that's just the beginning since they hope to be advocates for a long-term solution, but that's going to require a lot more resource. And again, I like where this whole water supply plot is going. You can tell this is a big issue that no one's really addressing, and they want to do something about it because everyone seems to just be kind of ignoring it because it's not, exclusively affecting them. But I definitely feel like this water epidemic, it's going to get a lot worse than it is, so I'm interested in seeing where that's going to go. But a man then tells her that she's exquisite and starts to flirt with her, which Cal watches with discontent, and here we get to the part of the episode that I really did not get. If Sarah wants to still be with Eddie and she has that regrets and, has the regret of her not being as close with him, why is she letting this man flirt with her? I mean, why didn't she just push him off immediately? Why is she trying to move on? This just didn't really make a ton of sense to me. I get that people want her to move on, but it just didn't really seem like something Sarah would do. It just kind of seemed like she did this, I guess, just to keep the party going, but I don't know. It just didn't really seem like something Sarah would do. Sarah's very business-oriented, and this was really not a good example of that, but Cal's then offered a drink, and we get a great scene where he lets the waiter know it's not now, and he will not be drinking all night because we know the kind of experience that he has when he drinks, and he goes to Carrie, says it's getting pretty late. He's wondering when they should get to ask for contributions since everyone seems to be gathered. She says they weren't going to do that tonight. This is more of a friend-raiser than a fundraiser, and they don't want to seem desperate with this crowd since it will only scare them off, and Cal is less than pleased at this result. So Hawk then walks with Noah in the darkness, and she asks where they are. He says it's just a few steps and tells him that they can't see shit anywhere and this is a nightmare. She asks him what they heard. He says it's a dog. She screams that it's a spider, then tells her it's a spider. She lights a match. He says that she's cheating. She says she can't do the dark, and he says that's why they do the darkness. It's the scariest thing. That's no reason to give up on themselves. And she says she's not like him, and he asks what that means. And she says that when he was born, he was brought up here in this loving circle paradise. But when she was little, her mom left her with a German Shepherd as a babysitter for days, and she would say if something happens, she knows where she keeps the gun, and so these two actually do start to bond. He tells her that he's actually just as her. He says he's not in this like his DNA, and he says he's completely freaked out because nothing in his life really makes sense anymore. And this is really the first scene where this is the Hawk, I think, that we really saw from season 1, where he was very undecided. He really didn't know where his life was going to go. And he talks about how, his parents are a mess. Everything's ripped apart. He found someone that he loved. He lost her, and he just thought that this night, being out here in the dark, if he could survive this, then maybe he would wake up somewhere, pass through something, or figure something out. That is why he's so dedicated. He's not doing this because he really cares about 1R. He's doing it for his own fulfillment. He's doing it so he can finally find some purpose in his life beyond Ashley because he really doesn't know where he wants his life to go. You get the sense that he kind of was forced to join 1R. He really didn't want to, but he really had no other path, and he just kind of chose it because he didn't really know what else, where else this would take him. And it's really the first time, like I said, where we really see Hawk as I think he's supposed to be. This scene was very well done. It finally made us see Noah and Hawk as not just a replacement for Ashley. I actually saw Noah as a real person, especially when she switches off the match. The problem is it's cut short. This is the only other scene we see is toward the end, and it just wasn't enough with this plot. I wish we saw more with Hawk and Noah developing the characters, but unfortunately it is cut way too short, and we really don't get to get that great characterization that we probably could have gotten. So Cal then goes outside to pray. He says to Meyer to give him gratitude, show him light, surround him with love, and he finds Mary, and I loved this scene. This scene was incredible, saying the exact same thing. She says he keeps looking at and asks if he wants to touch a baby because he can. He reaches out and touches him, and she says he hates people out there, and he says he wouldn't say hate. She says that he needs their money, so he has to make them feel good, treat them like they're not the assholes that they know deep down they really are, and he says that's not quite how it works, and like I've said, Mary's the one who really understands Cal the best. She's the one that unleashes that very giving, generous side of him that he doesn't really show a lot. And a couple then comes outside. He tells him to leave since there's a pregnant woman out there. But then Sean comes out, and Sean is not happy, to say the least. He gives them water. Cal says to let them talk, and basically you can tell that things are not great there. So Chloe then asks Eddie if he likes doing construction. He says it's great. He gets to work with his hands. It's simple work. And she says that Johnny did construction. Eddie says he did. Their father taught them who could build a home from studs, put in everything from electrical to plumbing, and the drinking got bad, but still getting back into the swing of it. She says there's a couple things she's dying to ask him, and he tells her to go ahead. She asks him in his movement, did he have any rituals that he would do regarding sex, and he says it was a religious community, it wasn't that weird, and very quickly he thinks that she's trying to get dirt on him, and that's the only reason why they're really on this date. She can trade it at the salon, and she says it's now she's trying to do it all, but he's not willing to listen to her. He tells her he's not going to pay her sideshow. He runs out, but she actually does come back in, and she talks about how after Johnny died, she had nothing, no answers as to why it happened and nowhere to go, and he found somewhere to go, a place that has the answers that he needs, and it probably saved his life, and he says it did. She says who can judge him for that, not her, and he said they did save him. It was beautiful for some type of story that just contained it and helped it, but it only works when someone believes it, because once they pull the thread, it just turns into nothing right in their hands. And yeah, Eddie does have a point here. I mean, we now know that Meyerism is nothing to him. That faith that he once had is completely gone, and that is why Eddie, I think, is as broken as he really is so far this season. And she goes to him, she kisses him, and I do like the way that Chloe is very much helping out Eddie. I like the way we saw these two bond overall. Even though this was a bit rushed, I thought it worked for the most part. I'm definitely interested in seeing where this is going to go. So Sarah then asks the man who she's talking to on what exactly private equity means, and he asks if she's sure she wants to know. She says she's asking. He says that he's just afraid it might be a little too enticing, and she's maybe too interested. Cal then tries to get the attention of the crowd, and he goes in this long speech about the purpose of this evening and talks about how half a mile from here in Canarsie, there are 30 young novices sleeping on a concrete floor, dedicating themselves to the social mission of their movement. They are sacrificing and slaving to make a heaven for the homeless of the city, the sick and disabled, the forgotten people that walk past every day in the streets and avert their eyes. They are intervening, making a difference and saving lives. And Sarah then walks away. She goes off with this guy, and we can see that, obviously, Freddie and Carrie are not happy. Cal is doing what he can to, not Freddie, I mean Johnny and Carrie are not happy. He's trying to get everyone to pay up and everything, and you can see that John is not all happy, so they look at him and discuss. Sarah then goes in the library. The man comes in, says she couldn't take the guilt trip in there. She says it was rough, and he then goes to her, tells her it's okay, kisses her neck, and Eddie and Chloe have gone back to his apartment where she plans on having a little sexy time with him as well, so it looks like they're going to be down to sex, and even though he says no, he kind of still goes for it because, he really has nothing to lose. I mean, he knows he's not going to get Sarah back. He doesn't really have much of a relationship with her. Things are not great between them. This is the only thing he has as someone who, isn't part of Meyerism. Why not just go for it? So they actually do have sex, and Sarah and the man from the fundraiser start to get intimate as well, but she looks at a picture of a deer on the wall, sees that regret that she really has, and actually pushes him off. And I like that. I like that she did push him off. But why would she go with him in the first place? That's something that I didn't really understand at all. But she tells him she can't do this, goes back in the fundraiser, and John is then chastising Cal for treating his friends in an ill manner. He says he can't ask people for money while he's indicting everything they stand for, and Carrie, says he was just being rhetorical, and John says that his business runs on relationships, and he threatened that in here. Carrie says he's sorry. John says he thought that he had a big fish reeled in. Well, he just lost their business, and Cal says he's not a business partner, he's a religious leader, and John says he doesn't think he's a leader at all. And yeah, I think John does have a point there. He really isn't been much of a leader, but Sarah goes to them. John says someone had fun tonight, at least, so the evening wasn't a total loss. Cal says he should get her home. Sarah thanks them, and Cal then tells her to go. She says not to grab her. The man asks her if she's going to spit on him now. She says she has to go. He says that she can give him her number or something. Cal says she's not giving him anything, and just like a brother would to a sister, he punches him out, and we never see that guy again. I'm still trying to figure out what the point of him was, but he knocks him down. Everyone is shocked as they leave. So, very interesting stuff there. And Cal, again, kind of made a fool out of himself. But Sean then wakes up in the middle of the night. Mary goes to him, asks if he can't sleep. And we finally get that Sean and Mary scene that I've been waiting for this season. I was waiting for this in episode 1, but we got in episode 2. And I like this overall. She asks what's going on. He says he did not like that tonight. Him just trotting them out in front of all these people was little success stories that didn't feel bad to her, and she says it didn't since she's so used to feeling shamed after everything that's happened to her. It felt good to have someone show her off, be proud of what she's been through, because she really feels like she's been through, shit her entire life, and there's been nothing good in her life, and he says he doesn't want to take that from her, but what gives him the right to touch her like that, like he owns her, because, that's his, and she says that she's there with him, this is where she wants to be, and tells him to just go back to bed. He says it's not okay, it's never gonna be. He then breaks a glass, cleans it up. Mary sees she was cut by it, which she, of course, is actually unfazed by because of her history with self-harm. Very well done scene there. I think they did a really good job in showing that when Mary's cut, she doesn't feel anything because, we know she's had issues with self-harm before. She's hurt herself many times. So when she's cut, she doesn't feel hurt. She actually feels like she's kind of gained something by it, and it really does show where Mary's character has gone. So Cal then goes to Sarah, gives her a cup of coffee, and he says last night was his fault. He's the one who got them into this financial mess, and when he had an opportunity to get them out, he handled it poorly, but he's been thinking and making alternate plans, that there are people that they could go into and call on before they let the council know, and she says she could turn him in for Silas's death, and he says she could, but she won't, because then it's truly all over. She asks how he lives with himself after all the truth and not what he preaches, because she's having a really hard time. He says it's a living, waking hell, and he's never without regret, much as it goes against everything they teach. It's just always with him. All he can do is try to make up for it. And yeah, there's so much shit that Cal has done that he can really blame himself for, and things that he really does regret. But the problem is, what's done is done. He can't go back to it, and that's why he didn't just want to let it go. And he then takes her through the corridors. They go into a room with all the refugees inside, and I like the way this kind of awakens Sarah. It shows her hope that maybe she can do this. Maybe there is a good thing that they're doing. Maybe there is some good in, what they've been preaching. This doesn't have to be a horrible process, and I really did like that. But Eddie and Chloe then sleep together. Sarah remembers back when Meyer married her and Eddie. Eddie then wakes up next to Chloe. Hawk starts to fly in midair, becoming one with the lights, and that is the way this episode ends. Very interesting stuff overall, but let's just get into this episode more. I think we're going from here. So overall, while this episode did have the potential to be something really big, not much happened, honestly. I don't really think a ton happened in this episode. There definitely was stuff that happened at the charity, but this definitely was more of a filler episode than we needed, but I wouldn't really call it a filler episode. I think the show in general is just kind of having problems with having a longer episode length, because last year, they had 10 episodes. They were able to do everything they could in those 10 episodes. There wasn't really a rush or anything like that. Now they have 13. There's a lot more breathing room for 13 than when you have 10. And I think the show is not exactly using that to their advantage. It's kind of hurting them in many ways, because either they're saying things are happening too quickly, or things are happening not soon enough. And that's something that I think is definitely a problem with this episode. But let's first talk about Cal and Sarah, because I really love the direction this is going, because Sarah's in a really precarious position right now, because, she really does genuinely care about Cal, and she does want to help him, but at the same time, she's harboring a murderer, and this is someone who has committed so many horrible acts and so many things that she does not condone whatsoever. And we know that she really does not trust Cal right now, and really the only reason that she's, advocating for him is because of the fact that he really doesn't have anyone else to turn to. So I really could see a situation where Sarah ends up turning Cal in. I mean, if I was Sarah, I definitely would do that, especially because with all the shit that she's been going through, getting Cal out of her life would be one step closer to finally, getting her out of the misery that she's been in, because she's just been in so much misery lately that finally getting Cal, extracted from her life and doing something about it, I think that definitely is going to be a step closer to finally finding some sort of, fulfillment and happiness in her life, much like Hawk is trying to do, which I don't really know where that's going to go with Hawk and Noah. As we saw, we had like 2 scenes with them. I hope we see Ashley again. I really hope we do. I don't think this is going to be the end of her. She had such a big focus in season 1. She was a main character. I think we're definitely going to see her again. She's not listed in recurring. She's not listed anywhere. So I don't know if we're going to see her again, but I think they're trying to keep it as a surprise that we will. So we'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting. Eddie and Chloe. I don't know where this is going, really. I have no idea where this is going. If they're trying to get these 2 together, okay, but at the same time, Eddie has been pining for Sarah. I do definitely get why Eddie went with Chloe much more than I get why Sarah went with that guy. Eddie and Chloe, I understand, because the fact that Eddie had nowhere else to go. He's now been shunned from Meyerism. He doesn't have a place in that society anymore. He can't see his kids. He really has no idea what his life really means. So by doing this with Chloe, it finally gives him a reason to do something. It finally gives him something to do that doesn't involve Meyerism, and he's just going to take it. And I like the way he just took it. He was kind of, reluctant about it, but in the end, he kind of did decide to be with Chloe, and I'm interested in seeing where that's going to go. Sarah going to that guy, though, made absolutely no sense whatsoever. I mean, we can tell that she has genuine feelings for Eddie, and that she wants to be back here with him. She wants to have that good relation with him, but she just can't. Her life is already complicated as it is, so why the hell did she go with this guy? What is he going to give her? What is he going to what is it about him that's going to make her, more interested? How is this going to calm her down? It just didn't make any sense why Sarah would go with him. Now I get it, she pushed him off, but why'd she go with him in the first place? That didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Why would she just let this guy come on to her like this? That just didn't really feel like something Sarah would do. Sarah's much stronger than that, and I didn't really understand why. It didn't really fix anything. It made things worse, if anything, and it seemed like he was only there to be punched out by Cal and to have Cal humiliate himself once again. If that's what the show's gonna do this season, I'm not interested in that. I want to see Cal get better. I want to see Cal finally be able to conquer what he's doing. I don't know if there's a version of the show that can do that, or if he can actually get better, but I want to see at least something like that happen. I want to see this can't be happening forever. I want something to happen where Cal comes to this moment of self-realization where it seems like he is, but it seems like wherever he goes, tragedy struck. So I do hope that things get better there. And then Mary. I am 99% convinced that Mary is actually, Mary's actually pregnant with Cal's baby. I don't think it's Sean's. I think that conversation she had with Nicole is pretty evident that this is in fact Cal's baby. I don't think it's Sean's. I think that she definitely does. She's shown before she doesn't really care about Sean. She doesn't really want to be in this relationship with him. But right now she's doing a good job of kind of masking that, when in reality she really does care about Cal, and I'm interested in seeing where that whole story is going to go. You can tell that Sean's already kind of feeling the falseness in this marriage, and that she didn't really want this in the first place, and she kind of just did this as an arrangement rather than, based on love. This was based on an arrangement, and you can tell she really doesn't like him that much. And then the only other thing, I guess, to really talk about, like I said, I don't know where we're going with Hawk and things like that, so I don't really know what's going to happen there. Overall, guys, this definitely was more of an improvement over last... Oh, one other thing. The 1R walk that we had with Hawk and Noah, I get that Abe was only in one scene. Why wasn't Sam a part of that, though? I mean, we know that Sam is in 1R, and you need to be as committed to 1R as you can possibly be. So why was Sam not there? They didn't give a reason why he wasn't there. They didn't show, what was going on there? What was the excuse that he had? What did he exactly come up with? I mean, we know why Abe's not there, but why was Sam not there? That definitely did not make any sense to me whatsoever. And what is the end meme with Hawk flying in midair? That I don't understand at all. We didn't see the two expeditioners who are trying to do something about Meyer's body. We didn't see Meyer in this episode, and the ending in general I didn't really understand. But overall, guys, it was definitely closer to what the past should be. I do think the show is kind of losing steam. I'm not as into this season as it was with the first season, but I am still going to give this episode The Path a 3.5 out of 5 or a B. Yes, I say it is an improvement, but that doesn't mean it wasn't that doesn't mean it wasn't it was a great episode. It's just an improvement because of the character work and because of them mentioning things from season 1. All in all, guys, the season is not exactly impressing me. I'm not really on board with everything that's going on. There are a lot of things I feel they're kind of losing steam with. I feel the show doesn't exactly know what to do, and I don't really know where they're headed in season 2 for the rest of it, but I'm still going to stick around. I really do want to love this show, but so far this season not impressing me that much, and I really do hope it gets its act together, because if it does, we could have a really well-done, character-driven season, but at the same time, I don't really know what the season's trying to do, and that definitely concerns me for the inevitable future. The Path. Let me know if you guys saw this episode overall. Loved your thoughts on it. Are you enjoying the season? How's the season over season 1 for you guys? Where do you think the season's really going to go? That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will finally be for Series Unfortunate Events. I know I need to catch up on that, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.